Our main topic this week here on Mastering Dungeons is a panel that I did at Running GAGG, the local gaming group at the college known as SUNY State University of New York at Geneseo. I was joined on the panel by Jackson DiCarlo. Jackson joined me to talk about his experiences in the industry, what he did when he started, and how he's been navigating that. Whereas I come from the long view of 25 years of freelancing in the industry. So I hope you enjoy the panel.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Shawn.
Hello and welcome to wonderful Geneseo, New York, here on the campus of SUNY Geneseo. And I am Shawn Merwin. I am here with...
Oh, hi, I'm Jackson DiCarlo. I don't know why I thought you would say my name.
I couldn't remember. And we are going to talk to you about the role-playing game industry. So let's start with the question of who we are and why we are qualified to talk about such a topic. And I work in the tabletop role-playing game industry. I've been a freelancer for 25 years, and for the last 5 years, I was the lead designer and then the managing editor at Ghostfire Gaming. And within the last 3 weeks, I have become a game designer, a contract game designer for Wizards of the Coast. So I have worked on D&D for the last 3 editions, as well as other tabletop role-playing games.
I'm going to say my name again. I'm Jackson DiCarlo. I am also a freelance RPG writer. I've done mostly work for Dungeons and Dragons. I started, I guess, technically in 2022, but the first project came in 23. There was a bit of a debacle in the industry that caused the freelance market to get shaken up, which put me back a bit. But my first project was because of Shawn. I worked with Ghostfire Gaming on their new Grim Hollow Transformed book. And then after that, I was introduced to many other freelance contractors who brought me in. I worked for Goodman Games, I worked for Elderbrain Games, and a few more. It's been a lot of fun.
So we're coming from 2 different perspectives here. We're coming from old dude who's been working here for a long time.
Respected industry veteran.
And a young dude
Ignore the air quotes.
who is just getting into the industry. And I thought it would be a good dichotomy to look at sort of both sides of this industry, because the most common question we get is, how do I get started in the industry? I love role-playing games. I love D&D. I love games in general. I can't get enough. I want this to be my career. How do I do it? And unfortunately, the answer is not easy. So the first thing that we're going to do is tell you how we got started. I will tell you how other people I know in the industry have gotten started. And then we can get to some of the skills that it requires for you to get into the industry and maintain work within the industry. Mm-hmm. So I will go first. How I got started, it actually happened right here on the campus of tiny SUNY Geneseo in Geneseo, New York. I had played first edition and second edition D&D as well as other games. And third edition D&D came out. This was 2000. And I thought, I hadn't played in a while. It might be fun to get back into it. My wife had played. We had just had our daughter. And I thought, well, maybe now's the time to start playing again. And there was not only a new edition of D&D, but a new organized play campaign called Living Greyhawk. And that allowed you to play without really having a home group. You could make a character and you could take it to different places. You could take it to conventions, or to game stores, or to home games. And it gave you a larger community. And so the first opportunity we had to play with a larger group was here at Geneseo. So I came to Geneseo. My wife and a friend came, and we were playing, and we realized that, this game was really fun. I hadn't lost any of the joy I had for it. But there were opportunities to contribute to this campaign because it was run by volunteers. So even though I had sort of given up on the hope of ever making it in the industry, because there was no license to make your own stuff like there is now, this gave me the opportunity to contribute. So I had a degree in English and a degree in creative writing. So I said, hey, could I help by editing? Could I help by writing? Could I help by doing some things? And it was sort of it was a accepting community, but the leadership was sort of insular. And I'm way out here in Western New York, and all of the leadership of this part of the campaign was in New York City. And they're like, nah, we're good, thanks. So I continued to play, and I continued to DM, and slowly over time, they accepted my help. And I learned a lot, but I also was able to contribute a lot through my knowledge of writing. And so slowly over time, I got noticed by first this volunteer organization, then by the leadership of the organization, then by Wizards of the Coast, who saw the work I was doing. And I say this like it happened overnight. This was over like 10 years before I finally got the chance to actually contribute to an actual D&D product. This was all convention adventures, convention play, smaller projects that were only up on the internet. So it was a grueling experience. It was not an overnight success. It was 25 years in the making. But along the way, I learned so much by running an adventure 7 times at a convention and seeing 50 different players, or playing games at a convention and seeing 4 or 5 different GMs or DMs running games. And that experience all added up over time to the point where I almost know what I'm doing now. What was your experience in that way?
Well, I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons through a few different avenues. I mean, I've heard about it and read about it, saw it on TV, like through The Big Bang Theory, Futurama, all the pre-Stranger Things versions of D&D. I tried to get into it many times because of those things, but it was always like not quite right, or I didn't have the patient enough teacher or whatever. And then finally, freshman year of college, I met this great group of guys, and we decided to play D&D, and we just fell head over heels in love with it. We would play like 3 times a weekend, sometimes until 2 a.m. through fire alarms, and then the next morning immediately after. And then I would go to the radio station and run another game for a show there. But it was just so much fun. I fell into Critical Role. I started looking in all the YouTube channels and learning about third-party companies like Ghostfire Gaming through advertisements and Kickstarters, and it became like this ever-growing community that had all these different facets that I was interested in, and all these different flavors and cool things that you could explore. And then senior year, I went to Fredonia for film communication and narrative film, and we were working on a movie. And I was seeing in the class registry a class called Writing for RPGs by a guy named Shawn. And I said, I think I've heard that name before. And I just looked at my most recent like Kickstarters, and one of them was the Grim Hollow Monster Grimoire. And I went, wait a minute, the guy is writing on that. And it just like cracked $2 million or something. And I was like, I have to behave. Like I have to get in this class and make sure that I don't fanboy too much. And it was me and I think 9 other of my friends. We managed to stack the class with like our entire D&D group of friends. And we took it and we had so much fun. We learned a lot. Like I'd never thought up until that point that I would get to contribute anything to this hobby beyond my own homebrew from my own friends. But through taking your class, it was Shawn's class, as I mentioned, I learned a lot about all these different RPGs that I'd never thought of. Like we've talked about it many times in your show, but like Microscope and Fiasco. And we started like looking at all these different facets of game design, of like world building, of subclasses, of different game engines and how they function. And it really like flicked a switch in my brain of thinking of this game as just a game to something much, much bigger. And I remember being super into the class and taking great advantage of your office hours to show you stuff I was working on and asking you questions about my projects. And it was a lot of fun. Then I graduated and then it was over. So then I think I was following you on Twitter or Blue Sky, whatever it was before, and I saw that you were going to this convention. It was this convention that I would probably place my true origins at, because you were like, yeah, I'm going to run some games at Running GAGG. Who wants to come? And I was like, surely this guy like wouldn't mind if a former student of his came and played in one of his games. So me and my friend went and we hung out. We had a good time. We ran your game, and I remade that connection. And then I think that following summer was when you reached out and said, "Hey, I have some work for you. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Are you sure?" Like, I've never done anything, and you're asking me to write for it was a Grim Hollow project, which became one of my favorite settings after I got my hands on the books. And I got onto it. Like I mentioned, the OGL thing kind of threw a wrench in it, but eventually it was reborn into something even greater. And you asked me again, and I was thrilled. So I was let in to work with these other writers, and I had another starstruck moment where I saw like the Mount Rushmore of writers and editors that I knew. I was like, I'm in a group chat with these people. Like she did this book, and he did that book, and they did this, and I was like, I have to just ask them like as a coworker, like, what do you think about this, or how are you doing on your end? It was surreal. It was a great mix of veteran like industry talents and also new voices like mine. And all of us were given like a similar responsibility. So it was a very big burden, a very stressful moment of like, okay, this is it, like make or break. And I spent a lot of time really focusing in on that project and doing the best I could and trying to ask as many questions as I could without being annoying. But it worked out. I sent it off for edit, and I got paid, which was crazy. Like I would have done that for free, I feel like, but they're like, yeah, we'll pay you for this many words at this much. I was like, are you sure? But it was awesome. It was a dream come true. And if that was the end of it, I would have been happy. Like I could die happy saying I contributed to one of my favorite settings in one of my favorite games, and that would have been it. And then at some point, someone was like, hey, I need a freelance guy to do this. Is anyone interested in doing this? And I was like, I'm a freelance writer. I've done that before. And I gave them my information, and they said, okay, cool, we'll hook you up with Goodman Games. And then I met Chris Doyle, who was awesome. And he brought me in to work on, he was like, do you want to do some like monsters? I was like, sure. I did some monsters. And he's like, okay, cool. Do you want to do some adventures? I was like, sure. And I did some adventures. He's like, okay, do you want to do another whole adventure, like a whole thing just by yourself? And I was like, are you sure? And people keep saying yes, which is the crazy thing. It's just continuing to put yourself in a position where people are willing to give you a shot, and importantly, delivering, as I hope I do. But it just was one thing that kept it leading to another, and it's been surreal. I'm very blessed to have worked with so many great companies on so many great projects, and I hope this is just the beginning.
Yeah, we'll talk about skills later and what it takes.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you a story about you.
Oh, good.
I've taught this class for maybe 6 semesters now. And I've tried to give a lot of office hours just in case students need to come in. Mm-hmm. I've probably been visited in my office 10 times over those 6 semesters. And probably 8 of those are Jackson. And you might think, oh no, I'm doing too much, but no, because there's interest there. Uh-huh. I will tell this story as well. If I have a project and I need 8 freelancers, I'll send out the outlines or send out what they need to do. Probably 4. I'll do it this way. 1, I will never hear from again. They will just. Your work is due in 4 weeks. I will never hear from them. I will email them after 4 weeks, and I will never hear from them again. Mm. 2 of them will be late. Will probably not get me something on time. I may have to badger them, and then they may send me half the work. Another 3 will probably send something either on time or correct, but not both. It'll either be late but pretty good, or it'll be on time, but not great, and it will have to go through many revisions. There will be 2 more. I'm probably going to end up with fewer than 8. 13. There will be 2 that are on time and okay, and then there will be 1 that's early and writing to spec, and everything is great. And it's that 1 that continues on. The other people may come and go, may get other chances, but it's that 1 that you look for. Mm-hmm. And then when someone says, hey, another publisher says, hey, do you have anybody in mind? I'm not doing those other 7, right? I'm sending the one that did it right, did it on time, was early, was careful, all of that. So just being on time, doing it correctly, caring about it is a big thing.
Yeah.
So don't discount anything that you've done. You may not think that I did anything great, but you did.
Thank you.
So that is sort of how we got started. Mine was volunteering, community, being at conventions, running games, never saying no to a project, doing well on the projects you do. Jackson's was, the education route. Go through the educational process, learn the skills that way. In between, there are so many different stories of how people got into the industry. Originally, D&D came out in 1974. If you wanted to be in the industry in 1974, you either had to know Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, or you had to be from central Wisconsin, where the game began. That was it. And there were probably about 8 people. Then it was something like Dragon Magazine. And for those of you who remember time before the internet, oh, you don't remember a time before the internet?
Nope.
Well, believe it or not, there was a time before the internet. And what you did was you got a magazine in the mail once a month, and it had all this cool D&D or game stuff. And you're like, ooh, I want to write for that. So you would type on your typewriter, which would take forever. And then you would have to use whiteout when you made mistakes. And it would take you a week to write 2 pages. Because that's just how it took. You would put that in an envelope with a stamp and you would send it in and say, I would like to be published in your magazine, please.
Right.
And if you didn't put in a self-addressed stamped envelope, which is you have to put an envelope in with your address and stamp it so they can respond to you because they're not going to pay for the stamp to send it back. If you were lucky, 6 months later, you would get something and it would generally be, this was good, but we can't use it. Please submit something else. Cool. So that was the next way to do it. This was Chris Perkins, right? This was Chris Perkins. I think he was from Canada originally, right? Sending things over and over until they recognized his talent. And once he got published once, then it was more repetition. His stuff moved to the top of the pile, that sort of thing. That was then. As we moved through, now the internet's there. So now it is blogging. Now it is, I'm writing a blog. I'm hoping people like it. If it catches on, people will read it. My name will become a little more thing, and I will get the skills of writing. This is sort of the James Introcaso and Mike Shea ways of getting noticed. We went from blogs to vlogs, and then we went from vlogs to streaming, and we went from streaming. So then it became more about personalities, more about talking. And so that's how another generation of people got noticed. They're creating still, and they're still writing, but they're writing more scripts that they then speak to the audience with. But all of these methods over all of these years are all about application. You're applying the seat of your pants to the seat of the chair, and you are doing the work. And it's generally writing, because that's the medium with which role-playing games are delivered to people. Even if it's a digital game that you get on D&D Beyond, there's still words there that have to be written so they can be read. So all of these people learn that skill of communicating through a written medium, which is what a game requires you to be able to do, and do well and do repeatedly and learn from your mistakes. So the next time you do it better. Which generally leads to the next question we get, which is, okay, that's how you got started. That's how other people in the industry got started. Well, how do I get started? And I wish I had an answer.
I got asked that. I went to my first ever Gen Con last year. And it was great. And that was where I got my first ever printed product with my name in it. And I went full send. I ran 7 games out of the 11 slots. I went basically by myself. Like I went with you guys, but you were on your own thing. And it was really, really exciting. And then one of the players I had, like towards the end of like the games, like he had ran like 3 things with me. He said, "Well, how did you do it? How did you get in?" And I was like, "Get in." Am I in? I guess I'm in.
Welcome.
And he said, like, "Well, how did you do it?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I got lucky, I guess." But like I thought about it since. I shot him some messages in Discord later because I was like, okay, here's what I can think of, a few hours after. And I guess like one of the biggest things I would suggest to people is you have to show up at these places. Like go to cons, either like Running Gag local things, or go to Gen Con, go to PAX Unplugged, go to the places where writers are, where publishers are, where anyone who kind of cares at all about this industry is, whether they're fans or people who actually produce, and learn. Like I've gone to a few of these. I've been very lucky to go to a lot of these cons over the last year or so. And everybody I've talked to, whether they be a publisher, a writer, or just someone who I'm running a game for, they've been wonderful. Like they've been super interested in what I've done and what I want to do. And I've made a lot of connections, and some of them have reached out to me, some of them haven't. But you go again, you see them again, and you're that guy who keeps showing up.
Right.
You're that face who is always nice, who is continually telling them about the cool thing that you're doing, and eventually something will stick.
The people at those conventions, if you want to be a writer, they're your audience.
Yep.
So they are the ones that you're sitting having a chat with them. Wonderful people. That's market research.
Yep.
That's what do I love? What do I want in my game? Tell me, what do you want in your game? Or better yet, sit down, play a game with a group of people and a game master. Learn how that game master succeeds or fails at their craft.
Yeah.
Because they are the ones that you're writing the games for. Look at all the players. How are they interacting with the game? What can you do in your products to take advantage of their loves or their hates or their passion?
Yeah.
Put that into your game. So you're doing market research as you are having fun, hopefully, playing these games. So you're playing, then you're running games. You become the conduit between the game and the players. So you're learning all of that knowledge.
Yeah.
What do the players react to well? What do they not react to well? What are the different player types, right? Are they the super analytical, logical, want to move the minis around the board and want to every plus on their character sheet to be as high as possible? Are they the storytellers? Are they the world builders? All of these people are your audience, and you want to serve every single one of them in some way in the stuff you create.
Or did they forget their dice?
Or did they forget their dice? And
Like,
how do we play a game where no one has dice?
Yeah, like you will never learn anything more than if you show up to a con and run a game for someone. If it's a game you've written, if it's an adventure that you're converting, or if it's like, here's your Legends of Greyhawk adventure, here's your Grim Hollow, Grim Hunt adventure, check it out. Here's your adventure, run it. And you get 6 random people, or maybe you have a few friends that come and you have a few other randoms. But if you run for a group outside of the people you always play with, you will have a hugely different experience. Just the first few at Gen Con I ran, I had the same 3 games, and there was the same group, and then I ran the same 3 games for an entirely different group. Just that experience alone, I saw, okay, well, these people went this way and thought this guy was suspicious, but this other group wanted to date that guy.
Right.
So what did I do differently? Was it the people, or was it me?
Right.
Should I have emphasized this more, or did I overemphasize it here? And then I just wrote an adventure for the Grim Hunts, and we're running it at Winter Fantasy next week. It's going to be interesting to see. Like, I play tested with my friends, and that went pretty well, I think, mostly. But then there were some things where I was like, okay, this is way too hard. Let's tone this back. Or my one buddy was like, oh, I got demolished by the roof, or this is silly because I can't do this. And I was like, I didn't even think of that as a possibility. Like, you writing in your own little zone, you think everything is great, and then as soon as you put it in front of somebody, whether they're a friend or some complete stranger, you learn so much, and then it just makes you a better DM, a better writer, a better person. Yeah, it's great.
The importance of a single word in something like an adventure is huge. You walk into a room, there in the center there is a fire pit, and in the corner there is a statue. Right? You say that, you're going to get one reaction. In the center of the room, there is a deep fire pit, and there is a gold statue in the corner, you're going to get a different reaction.
Yep.
You describe the statue as holding a flaming sword. That you're going to get a completely different reaction. It all may be the same thing. It doesn't have to change anything that's actually happens in the adventure, but just adding a word here or there, you're playing with the minds of the players, and you can direct them in certain ways by just a single word choice.
Yeah, I guess I want to go a bit deeper on that adventure I wrote because it's fresh. The encounter was in an old, like, abandoned shelter, and I described it as being really run down, really decrepit. And as soon as the players got in, one of my players asked, if I do something, is it going to make the building fall in on itself? And I said, it should. It completely changed the entire encounter from being you're just fighting in a room to being you're fighting in a fragile room, which completely changed the entire thing. Like, I can't use fireball. I can't do thunder wave. I can't do this. And it, changed the dynamic of what they were facing. And then that led to another balance question of like, okay, well, if it's a horde encounter and I can't use my AoE spells, what do I do? So then that influence the revision. But you're right, it one word, like the fact that I described it as a kind of rinky-dink room that was about to fall in on itself, that changed the entire perception of the encounter.
And it's that level of detail that you need to go into everything you do with, because this is a weird hobby, it's a weird game, it's a weird profession. Because back in the day, they used to say right brain, left brain. Do they still do that anymore? A little bit. It's sort of been debunked, but the theory was the two different hemispheres of your brain control different aspects of your thinking. One was analytical and rational and logical. The other was creative. And so they would give these tests to figure out if you were right-brained or left-brained. And it was basically just, how do you solve problems? What do you focus on? And some people, the super analytical people, would get like L75, they're left-brained, or R26. Or I've known people that were like L300. I took that test.
Percent?
No, like it wasn't a percent, but it was like us. I think the highest was like 255, something weird like that.
Gotcha.
So you could either be like, the one extreme was like R255, one was L255,
Gotcha. Okay.
And everything else was a range.
Sure.
I was L1 when I took this test, and the people I worked with where I had to take this test looked at me like, "What the hell's the matter with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just answered the questions." But it's like that in this field, because you need to be super creative.
Yeah.
But you also need to stop and make a spreadsheet so you can keep track of all the different rules, all the different aspects, all the numbers.
Yeah.
And you can definitely focus only on world building. You can definitely focus on the thing that you are most passionate about.
Right.
But there always needs to be that little bit of the other side of your brain, if you will.
Absolutely.
That you shut off this side for a minute and say, all right, I just need to be creative. I just need to describe the room. I just need to think artistically, think visually, and then I'll come back to the numbers later.
Absolutely. That sometimes I have to do that too, like especially for adventure writing, where it's like, okay, I know I want them to go here and do this and then do this and then do this, but I don't want to know about the DCs or what skill check they have to roll or how many zombies there are. I'll just write the thing and then go back and say, okay, well, it's 6 of them. How many should there be? It's okay. It's a DC 13. It's going to be an investigation roll, like that sort of stuff. And especially for D&D, like I forget who I was talking to about it, but it is super technical, even if it is creative. Like I think unless you're just writing a backstory that's just pure narrative fiction, every single part of it has to tie into the rules somehow. Like people will get so minutely focused on one word in a feat that lets them do this because of this one word.
Right.
Like you have to be that technical, and especially if you're writing for something that is like official in any capacity, you have to be to the letter with the rules. Yeah. And that's a skill in itself. And it will happen in any aspect of what you're doing: monsters, adventures, characters, subclasses. Yeah.
I do an internship through Fredonia. And so I have interns who come in and they work on whatever I'm working on. Okay, today we're making a monster. Great, here's how we do it. And it was so funny to make a monster because it was exactly that. It was, all right, what does this monster look like? What based on what they look like, what can they do? So we're being very creative. We're being very artistic. And then it's like, all right, so how does that translate into numbers, right? What does this monster supposed to be sneaky? All right, so we're going to have to give it a high dexterity, but we don't want the armor class to be too high.
Yeah.
So we can't make the dexterity too high, but we still want to be very sneaky. So how do we move things around to manage that?
Yeah.
And then hit dice and hit points and all of that. And she went through it all with me, but I felt bad because it's like, okay, let's go here. Okay, now let's look at the art again. Let's go here.
Right.
And it's back and forth. It's whiplash of the right brain, left brain.
Yeah.
Just absolutely flying.
Yeah, there's so many things that I think anybody who's run a game of D&D ever just ignores. And you absolutely should ignore so much of the game when you're running it because it just makes it smoother. But like, you know, if I'm looking at a monster stat block, I'm looking at the health, AC, and the attacks. If I'm designing a monster stat block, I'm fretting over every single number, every single letter on that page. And I'm like, wait, is this, if I tweak this, I need to tweak this, I need to tweak this, I need to tweak this. And then I know that if I was running it, I would go, okay, it's a spider bat, it can do a web and a claw. Like, that's kind of the dichotomy of it is it's super, super minute, but it's something that you don't think about until you're actually writing it, you know, right. Writing it right.
Writing it correctly. There we go.
Sorry. See, I'm not even that good.
Language. Well, actually, that comes back to the question, how do you get started?
Oh, yeah.
And if you haven't noticed yet, we're geeking out up here about these like little minor details. Be that passionate about it. Love to play it.
Yep.
And love to forget about the rules and just immerse, but then also love to tinker and get into the details. Because if this is something that you would do even if you weren't getting paid for it, then you are in the right field.
Right.
So create the things that you love, and then push yourself to create the things that maybe you're not great at.
Right.
So if you love writing adventures, write adventures, share them with your friends. There are places now that you can publish them online. The DMs Guild, Drive Through RPG, even itch.io you can go to and put stuff up. And is it going to become like an overnight sensation? No. But 5 people might buy it, or 5 people might download it and look at it. And that's a start.
Right.
And if you can communicate with the people who you're sharing it with, which is, again, another great thing at conventions, go run a game that you created, and then at the end ask, how could it have been better?
Yeah.
And get that feedback. But just keep doing. Fail.
Yep.
And learn, and then fail again. What's the quote?
Fail.
Ever tried, ever failed, try again, fail better. Samuel Beckett. The best 10-word quote ever. But just keep trying and fail better every time. And you will finally get to the point where you're failing just well enough that everyone's going to love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think making stuff is the hardest part, even though that's the whole job.
Right.
Making stuff is the hardest part. I often struggle with like, okay, I haven't worked on my one fun homebrew thing in a while, or I want to make this monster, but I don't have the time to do it. And that's kind of my resolution that I've been failing horribly at so far this year, because I've been blessed to have work to do, but you need to make stuff. You need to show up at places and you need to show it to people. Even if it's subtle, like my super subtle thing that I do, I've been trying to design my own 5e class, and it's based off of a video game series that I love called Yakuza. It's about the Japanese mafia. So I made this big, stupid, complicated class, and I made some cover art for my little thing, and I have that as like the cover page of my binder that I bring to conventions. And if you're a fan of the series, it looks exactly like the original PS2 cover of the game, except it's got a dragonborn on it, and it's got like some D&D pun. And if it's like Comic-Con or PAX, I'm usually wearing the costume, like the suit of the character from the game. And a few times I've had people say, hey, are you dressed as Kiryu from Yakuza? And I go, yeah, that's awesome that you know that. Talk about it. And if I talk about D&D, because they're nerds, they're at this con, I say, you know what, I'm actually making something for that. And I have like a very tiny little QR code that I'll give them that links to my drive folder that has the thing in it. Like, it's not published, but it's in a drive folder that people can see. And I just give it to people. And once or twice I've heard, oh, this looks awesome, or this looks cool. And that's great. It makes me feel good. It makes me say, I want to work on this more. And, I want to get it out there officially and more than just a private drive folder. But that alone, like, don't underestimate what one random person's compliment can do for you. Like, if you just get one person to say, I would play that class,
Yep.
I would play that adventure, that sounds awesome, then it motivates you to want to do it.
Yeah, I've given talks like this at conventions, and at the end, I'll always have people come up, oh, like, here's my business card, or here's this, or here's that.
Yeah.
3 times I've had people come up with like a published, nicely printed small adventure.
Nice.
Or, you know, it's only 8 pages, or sometimes it's even 1 page, but it's got art. It's laid out nicely. It's printed nicely.
Yep.
And cards are great. Introducing yourself is great. But if I have that to take home and it looks good and it's professionally done, even though you did it yourself, you've got my attention. You've got my attention because you took the time to do that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's that, I will say, is so much easier than you think it is. James Introcaso, who is one of my favorite designers, he did a great video on I think it was the Matt Colville or MCDM channel, where he talked about getting into this very topic. I highly recommend it and highly recommend his work. But in the video, he talks about like a Microsoft Word template you can get that I've been using. It's like $5 or something, and it has all the typefaces and all the fonts, and it's super easy to just plug and play. Like, here's the monster format, bam. Here's the adventure format, bam. That's what I'm using for my little class. And just taking my Google Doc and putting that into there, just taking the time to properly do it. And it took me like less than an hour. It looks like an official D&D thing, and it's great. And on the art side, like, art goes a super, super long way. I hate the phrase "don't judge a book by its cover" because all the best books have great art, at least for D&D.
Yeah.
And it just took me going to there's so many subreddits and places online where you can find artists who are willing to work, especially for reasonable rates. And for my little sub project in this like video game, I found one person on that subreddit who was also doing D&D commissions. So I reached out to them and they were like, yeah, for like $25, I'll design that cover for you. And I've reached out to them a few times, and like we're both starving artists. Like, we're both just getting started, and they're super into the idea. I'm super into it, and they do great work. And now I have like art of these characters as D&D characters. And another thing that really ups your energy and makes their project stand out.
And that's another great example of something you can do, which is find a community that is at the same stage you are, because they can give you feedback. You can give them feedback. You can feed off each other's energy.
Yeah.
You can help each other with the skills you have. And so then you don't have to make it. They make it. And they remember all the great things that they've done with you, and they bring you along with them.
That's exactly what I did.
Yep. And it's just, you're making friends.
Yeah.
And you're making a community, and that community will lift you up, or you will lift that community up as you succeed.
It really is just making friends. Like, I've met so many great designers. Like, shout out to James Hake. Like, I went to PAX Unplugged, and in the one chat, James said, hey, who's going to PAX? And I messaged them and I said, oh, I'm going to PAX. I work with Shawn. It'd be super nice to meet you. And they made time for me. Like, we went out for coffee and we just talked about game design. And then they introduced me to all these other people at the con. And I was like, James, you're the coolest person ever. And they're like, yeah, no, don't mention it. Like, super chill. Like, everybody there is super willing to make friends and just lift each other up. So just go to these places and say hi and introduce yourselves, and who knows.
One other skill, as I mentioned earlier, is writing.
Yes.
Good writing is good writing, regardless of what you are writing. I don't care if you're making poetry or doing a press release or doing a business document or writing a story. If you can write clearly so that the person who's reading understands what it is that's in your head, you can make it writing anywhere. But you need to be able to write clearly. And to write clearly, you need to think clearly. You need to know what it is that you are trying to say in order to be able to say it. And sometimes that takes sitting down in a quiet room and thinking. Sometimes that means taking a walk with your wife and have her say, you're writing, aren't you? And you have to admit, yes, I am. Sorry about that. But I am writing right now because what you're doing is you are getting those thoughts into a logical order that then can be expressed through the written medium.
Yep.
And then you learn how to take those thoughts, put them on a page so clearly and easily readers can understand it.
Yeah. Thinking clearly. We talked about thinking earlier.
Yeah.
You have to be able to think. I'm going to echo the play testing part of this. You don't need to have a finished product or a draft to play test. Like, just go to your friend and say, hey, I'm going to tell you about this adventure I'm writing. Could you tell me if this makes sense? Like, you will have a completely different view of your own thing if you just describe it. I think the best adventures are ones that you can just pitch as like a movie to someone and they say, that sounds interesting and it makes sense. If your adventure takes a lot of like, well, you need to know about this, or, you know, this and this and this and this and this and this, like it kind of gets lost. If you can explain it to your mom, that's my parents are my go-to. I was like, okay, so I'm writing this adventure about Astoria, and it's, you know, a vampire like region where these people are like this, and there's a blood tax, and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, how does that work? I'm like, well, because this and this and this and this. I'm like, okay, well, why is there no sun? I'm like, well, because of this and this and this and this. Like, I'm realizing like I'm speaking too broadly. So then I bring it in, and then eventually I can tell the story of this farmer who's trying to do this because of this. And they go, oh yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense. Right.
And then, you know, you've got it at that point.
Yep. So we've gone on for a while. I wanted to see if there were any questions out there before we wrap this up. And if there are no questions, that's okay too, because we've gone on for quite a while. Yes.
So would you say that when you're writing something, when you're talking about the right brain, left brain, all those things, do you almost write it in like layers? Like, do you write one layer because you're writing that story, you're distilling it down to the story, and then you keep adding layers? Is that what that's like?
I'll restate the question just in case they didn't pick it up on the mic. The question was, when you do writing, do you write in layers? Going back to that like right brain, left brain thing. And the answer is absolutely.
Yeah.
Just like when you were in middle school or high school, you have to write the outline, and then you have to write the first draft, and then you have someone proofread it, and then you write the second draft. It's exactly like that, only on a larger scale.
Yeah.
And depending on the size of the project, it could be years rather than months or days or months. But how I look at it is, say I'm writing an adventure. I'm first writing it to write it, to get the story down. So it's the writer writing it. And then I go back through it and I say, okay, I'm the game master. If I was the game master and I read this, what would I think? And I have to turn off everything I know. I have to get really stupid. Okay, I'm going to get stupid now. I've forgotten everything I know. Now I'm just the game master. Here we go. Oh, that makes no sense. And like kind of like you said, you have to become your own mom and to say, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, that doesn't make any sense. All right, let's change that. So I get that done. And then I go back through and I'm like, okay, now I'm a player. Would I love playing this? Okay, let's go through. Oh, you know, if I was a player, I would love it if it collapsed.
Yeah.
All right. So, and that's where playtesting can also come in, as Jackson said. But yes, I absolutely go through that process of who are the audiences. I'm going to step into that role of that audience, and I'm going to go through it in that way. And then you can do the same thing with game rules. With a monster. With this monster, does this monster make sense in the world and in the story? Would this monster be fun to run? Would this monster be fun to play against as the player? And you go through all of the steps. Yeah,
I think describing it as layers is brilliant. I don't know why I haven't thought of that, but congratulations, you have changed my brain chemistry. Layers is definitely the way. Exactly how Shawn said, you know, getting the bones down on the adventure and then fleshing it out as you go if you want a more anatomical metaphor. I'm going to give you two quotes here. One is from Ben Byrne, who works at Ghostfire Gaming. I just sat down with him and did some revisions to my adventure, and he phrased like DMing in a way that I hadn't heard before. He said, when you're writing an adventure, you have to think of yourself as the script writer and the DM as the director, which just worked perfectly because I am a film guy. And the second quote is from a director named Matt Johnson, who does a show called Nirvana, the Band, the Show. which is now a movie. He did the Blackberry movie, which is super, super good. But he is known for doing the writing, editing, directing, like all of that. Like he's one of those auteurs who just does it all. And he had this quote when he was talking about his most recent movie where he said, you have to be like, when you're the writer, like you have to be writing the best thing you've ever written. And then when you're the director, that guy's an idiot. Like everything that guy did, you have to be super critical of, and you have to say, okay, what the hell was he thinking? Like, this is stupid. This is stupid. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this. Because when you're, writing in pre-production versus when you're on set, or when you're writing your adventure versus when you're DMing it, it's completely different. And you have, things in the situation have changed, or how you want to run things has changed, or you're, just it's months later and, you have different feelings about it. And then the same thing in post, like if you're doing editing for a film or for revisions, that director is an idiot. Why did he shoot it like that? Why did he run that NPC with that accent? Like, what am I going to do about it now? And, you always have to be critical of yourself, and you're constantly doing that in every layer. So if you're writing your outline, good. Then when you're doing the fleshing out, why the hell would I phrase that encounter like that? Why would I say it was like that? And then when you're revising that, why did I change that? Why did I do this? So the layered approach is great for organization and also making sure that you're still critical of what you're doing and getting the best result possible.
Thank you for that question.
And we're back. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions about anything we talked about on the panel, you know how to get in touch with us. Or if you don't, I'm about to tell you. Yes, you can first become a patron of the show. If you're new to us in the new year, welcome. Thank you. I hope whatever show brought you here, whatever that we talked about got your interest. We hope we're able to maintain that. And you can help us maintain that by becoming a patron of the show. You can go to patreon.com/masteringdnd and choose one of 3 tiers. You can become a Master of Dungeons supporter. You can become a Master of Realms supporter, who get a link in our show notes or get a shout out in our show notes, or you can become a Master of the Multiverse who get your name mangled by me. Agile Monk of Fantasy Companion Workshops. Keith Ammon of The Monsters Know What They're Doing. Lou Anders of Lazy Wolf Studios. Craig Bailey. Rudy Chainsaw Basso. Dave Bastiensen. Derek the Bearded GM. Steve Bissonette. Merrick Blackman. Bosjan from Duality Press. Calvin Bridges Avalos. Robo Balland. Kevin Criswell. That Inertia DM. Evil John. Evan at Nimbleco. Will Doyle. Andy Edmonds at NerdRonomicon.com. James Fisher, Scott Fitzgerald Gray at Insane Angel Studios, Ben Heisler and Paige Lightman, Sean Hurst, Hyperlexic, the Jaunty Mantis TTRPG Podcast, Mark and Mary's Gaming Compound, The Mighty Jerd, JR of the Twilight Perspective, JT Evans, Brian King, Jim Klingler, Gail Kiramandy, Chad Lynch, Paul Mata, The Mathemagician, Jaron from Mathis Arcanum, Eric Mengi, Anna B. Meyer of Fantasy Cartography, Trey McLemore, John Mickey, Sean Molly, Falcon Neal, Tom Nelson, creator of the Deck of Player Safety, DT Norris of DT and Dragons, Phil Wirt from the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, Philip and Lindsay, Frog Prince at Tentacles Squelching Wetly, Post-Fiction RPG Audio, Ricardo Who Might Adventure, Robert Pasley, Vladimir Prenner from Croatia, Ozymandias Rex, Runner Rick, Chance Russo at Drago Russo, Andy Shockney, Krishna Simos, Tim Smith, Spark from Dunner Games, Jeff Stevens at jeffstevensgames.com, Josh and Lee Wanika of the Tabletop Journeys podcast, Talos the Stormlord, Jeremy Talaman from the D&D and TV podcast, Tres, Ryan Truk, Joe Tyler, Marcel de Velasquez, the Valiant DM, Christina Vasalena Photography from Bergen, Norway. I'm almost getting that right. James Walton, Graham Ward, Jason Ward from Accidental Cyclops Games, Javier Waziak, Waterford Wizard, Chris Webster, Zach Types, and Z. Walt Winfrey. Thank you all for your support, and we hope to see some of you this coming weekend at Winter Fantasy. If you can't support our Patreon, totally understandable. You can really help us out, though, by giving us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, or if you are seeing us on YouTube, give us a comment, give us a subscribe, give us a thumb, 2 thumbs, 4 thumbs if you've got handy thumbs. Do all this stuff. Teos, where can people find you and your work?
Ooh, find me at alphastream.org. I've got a couple recent blogs there and a video today that came from a viewer of the YouTube channel that asked about whether you could do a skill check more than once. And I answered it. And then I thought about it and this would be a good video. And so I did that.
Nice. You can find me. I'm not that interesting. I'm not as interesting as Teos for sure, but you can still find me on the socials at Shawn Merwin. You can find the podcast at Mastering D&D on the socials, or again, go to that YouTube channel, youtube.com/@masteringdungeons, and hit us up there. Woo. Well, Teos, we've got a lot of work cut out for us because Winter Fantasy is coming. So what are we going to do now?
Start a second organized play program in our house.
Sounds good. I'm going to start walking because it's a long walk to Fort Wayne.
Exactly right.